I'm Samantha Adams, 29, staring at my reflection in disbelief. 6 months ago, Mom called about Kate's wedding, insisting I lose weight so I wouldn't ruin the photos. I never imagined my transformation would create such chaos. The dress I'm wearing for tomorrow's rehearsal dinner fits perfectly, but my family's reactions don't fit at all. Their supportive mask is slipping, revealing something ugly underneath. I'm still processing everything that happened. If you've ever had family try to change who you are, drop a comment below. While you're settling in, hit that subscribe button. This story might help someone feeling the way I did. Growing up in suburban Minneapolis, I always knew I was different from the rest of my family. My father, Thomas, is a successful corporate lawyer, always impeccably dressed in tailored suits with not a hair out of place. My mother, Diana, was a local beauty queen in her youth, who transitioned into event planning where she could continue to surround herself with beauty and perfection. Then there are my sisters, Catherine, or Kate as we call her, who at 32 is everything my parents wanted: beautiful thin, successful in her finance career, and now engaged to an equally perfect man. My younger sister, Grace, 23, completes the family portrait as the baby who could do no wrong, blessed with my mother's looks and my father's sharp mind. And then there was me. From my earliest memories, I was the square peg in a family of round holes. While Kate and Grace inherited our mother's slim build and classic features, I took after my paternal grandmother, shorter, with a fuller figure and a rounder face. This difference became the focal point of family conversations from the time I was in elementary school. Samantha, are you sure you need a second helping? My mother would ask at dinner, her voice sweet but her eyes sharp. Kate never had weight issues at your age, my father would add, as if this helpful observation might magically alter my genetics. My 10th birthday party stands out in my memory. Mom had organized a backyard ballet theme complete with a professional photographer to capture our perfect family moments. I was excited about my pink birthday dress until I overheard my mother talking to the photographer. "We'll need to position Samantha behind her sisters in some shots," she said in a hushed tone, "and maybe some creative angles to slim her down." I pretended not to hear, but something inside me crumbled that day. Not just because of what she said, but because this was how she saw me: a problem to be fixed, a flaw in the family portrait. School events were particularly difficult. Parent-teacher conferences should have been a proud moment since I excelled academically consistently, bringing home straight A's. But instead of praise for my achievements, the car ride home would inevitably include comments about other girls' appearances. "Did you see Jessica Miller's daughter? She's lost so much weight since last year. You could do that too, Samantha, if you put your mind to it." Family gatherings were worse. Our extended family seemed to share my parents' fixation on appearances. Aunts would greet Kate and Grace with effusive compliments about their beauty, then turn to me with the dreaded, "You have such a pretty face, Samantha." The unspoken, "If only the rest of you matched," hung in the air like a bad perfume. My relationship with Kate was complicated. She never directly criticized me like our parents did, but she never defended me either. When relatives would compare us, she would accept the compliments with a gracious smile, occasionally throwing me a sympathetic glance afterward. That sympathy almost hurt more than the criticism. It confirmed that even Kate saw me as somehow less than. Grace, being younger, simply followed the family pattern. She learned early that her appearance was her currency, and she spent it wisely, leveraging her beauty for attention and favors from our parents. Throughout my teenage years, my parents enrolled me in various weight loss programs, fitness classes, and even sent me to a wellness camp one summer while my sisters went to Europe. None of these interventions produced the dramatic transformation they hoped for, which only increased their disappointment. What my family failed to notice was that while I might not have fit their physical ideal, I was developing in other ways. I found solace in books discovering worlds where people were valued for their minds and hearts rather than their appearances. I developed a talent for writing and photography, capturing beauty as I saw it, rather than as defined by fashion magazines. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Ramirez, became my lifeline. She recognized my writing talent and encouraged me to pursue it. "You see the world differently, Samantha," she told me once. "That's not a weakness. It's your greatest strength." When it came time for college, I chose to major in graphic design and communications at the University of Minnesota, much to my parents' dismay. They had hoped I'd follow Kate into business or law fields they considered prestigious. But for once, I stood firm. Design allowed me to combine my love of visual storytelling with my writing abilities, and I thrived in the creative environment. College became my escape. Away from my family's constant scrutiny, I began to develop confidence in my abilities. I made friends who appreciated my creativity and sense of humor. For the first time, I felt valued for who I was, rather than criticized for who I wasn't. After graduation, I turned down a job offer in Chicago to stay in Minneapolis, a decision my family couldn't understand. They saw it as a lack of ambition, but I had my reasons. Despite everything, Minnesota was home, and I wanted to build my life on my own terms, not run away. What my family never understood was that their constant criticism hadn't motivated me to change. It had only taught me that their love was conditional, and while part of me still yearned for their approval, a stronger part was determined to find happiness on my own terms, even if it looked nothing like their definition of success. Now, at 29, I've carved out a life that feels authentic to me, even if it falls short of my family's expectations. I work at North Star Creative, a small but respected design agency in downtown Minneapolis. It's not the prestigious corporate job my parents envisioned for me, but I love the creative freedom and the collaborative atmosphere. My apartment is a third-floor walk-up in an old converted warehouse in the North Loop neighborhood. It's small but filled with character. Exposed brick walls, tall windows that flood the space with natural light, and enough room for my photography equipment, and a small home office where I work on freelance projects. My parents have visited exactly once, their tight smiles and wandering eyes making it clear they found it lacking. But to me, it's home, the first space that's truly been mine. At work, I found something close to family. My boss, Jordan, is in her 40s and built the agency from nothing after leaving a soul-crushing corporate job. She sees potential in me that my family never did, pushing me to take on challenging projects and mentoring me in the business side of creative work. "You have an eye for the unexpected, Sam," she told me during my last performance review. "Your designs tell stories that stick with people." My closest friends, Aisha and Marcus, have been my rocks for the past 5 years. We met at a local photography workshop and bonded over our shared love of visual storytelling. Aisha is a wedding photographer with an uncanny ability to capture genuine emotion, while Marcus specializes in food photography for local restaurants. Unlike my family, they accept me exactly as I am, plus-size body and all. It was a Tuesday evening in January when my phone lit up with my mother's name. I was in the middle of finalizing a pitch for a new client, and I briefly considered letting it go to voicemail. But ignoring my mother's calls only led to a barrage of follow-up texts expressing concern about my well-being or passive-aggressive comments about how busy I must be to ignore family. "Hello, Mom," I answered, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued to work. "Samantha, I have wonderful news." Her voice had that particular pitch it got when she was excited about something that enhanced the family image. "Kate is engaged. Jonathan proposed last weekend at his family's cabin. The ring is absolutely stunning. 3 carats emerald cut. Jonathan was Kate's boyfriend of 2 years, a successful entrepreneur from a wealthy family. They had met at a charity gala, a meeting so perfect it could have been scripted by my mother herself. "That's great, Mom. Tell Kate congratulations from me." "You can tell her yourself at dinner on Sunday. We're having a small celebration at the house." I suppressed a sigh. Family dinners inevitably involved subtle and not-so-subtle comments about my weight, career choices, and perpetually single status. "I'll be there." "What time?" "6 o'clock." "But Samantha, that's not all I wanted to discuss." Her tone shifted slightly, and I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach. "The wedding is set for July 15th at the Lake Geneva Resort. It's going to be absolutely beautiful, very exclusive. Kate has asked you to be a bridesmaid along with Grace and her 2 friends from college." "That's nice of her." Kate and I weren't close, so this surprised me. I suspected my mother's influence in the decision. Maintaining the appearance of family unity was important to her. "Yes, well, about that." My mother paused, and I could picture her carefully selecting her words. Samantha, the bridesmaid dresses Kate has chosen are very elegant Vera Wang designs, slender column silhouettes. They're going to be in a beautiful sage green that will be stunning in the lake setting. I knew exactly where this was going, but I remained silent, forcing her to actually say it. Samantha, I think it's time you made a serious commitment to your health. The wedding is 6 months away, which gives you plenty of time to slim down considerably. We can't have the wedding photos with a bridesmaid who doesn't fit the aesthetic. Even though I'd anticipated it, the words still hit like a physical blow. I gripped my desk edge knuckles whitening. So what you're saying is that I'm too fat to be in Kate's wedding as I am. Don't be dramatic, Samantha. I'm talking about your health. And yes, about how the wedding party will look. These photos will be in magazines. Jonathan's family has connections. Kate deserves to have everything perfect. And I'm not perfect. It wasn't a question. No one's perfect, dear, my mother said with false lightness. We all have to work on ourselves. Your father and I would be happy to pay for a personal trainer, or perhaps that new weight loss program that Catherine Martin's daughter had such success with. Before I could respond, I heard my father's voice in the background. Is that Samantha? Tell her we expect her to take this seriously. Kate's wedding isn't about her. My mother relayed the message, not bothering to soften his words. I need to go, Mom. I'll see you Sunday. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking with a mixture of hurt and anger. Less than an hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Mom told me she talked to you about the wedding. I hope you understand how important this day is to me. The dresses are absolutely perfect, and I know you'll look beautiful in them with a little effort. Love you. Not a word acknowledging how hurtful our mother's request had been. Not a hint that she might have defended me or suggested more inclusive dress options. Just the assumption that I would comply as I always had with family expectations. I sat in my apartment that night staring out at the Minneapolis skyline, torn between my instinct to protect myself and the lifetime habit of seeking my family's approval. Part of me wanted to decline being a bridesmaid to finally stand up for myself. But another part, the part that still yearned for my family's acceptance, wondered if this might be the time I could finally earn it. Little did I know that this ultimatum would set in motion changes that would transform far more than just my physical appearance. The following Saturday, I met Aisha and Marcus at our favorite coffee shop, The Grounded Bean. I'd been avoiding talking about my family's latest demands, but the wedding was approaching and I needed perspective from people who actually cared about me. They said what Aisha nearly spilled her latte when I recounted my mother's phone call. Her expression shifted from shock to outrage. That's beyond inappropriate, Sam. It's cruel. Marcus shook his head, his usual easy smile replaced by a frown. Your family has a real talent for making beauty standards sound like they're concerned about your welfare. I know, I know. I wrapped my hands around my mug, drawing comfort from its warmth. The thing is, I'm used to this from them. What I can't figure out is what to do about it. Tell them to shove their bridesmaid dress where the sun doesn't shine, Aisha suggested, only half joking. I've thought about refusing, I admitted. But then I'd have to deal with 6 months of guilt tripping, followed by a lifetime of hearing how I ruined Kate's perfect day by making it about me. And honestly, some petty part of me wants to show up and make them deal with me exactly as I am. Marcus studied me thoughtfully. There's a third option, you know. What's that? You could make changes, but do it for yourself, not for them. He held up a hand when he saw my expression. Hear me out. What if you use their ridiculous demand as motivation to focus on your health and well-being? Not to meet some arbitrary standard of beauty, but to feel stronger and more confident. I started to object, but Aisha jumped in. He's not wrong, Sam. You've mentioned wanting to feel more energetic to have more stamina for those all-day photo shoots you love. This could be an opportunity to invest in yourself. But wouldn't that be giving them what they want? The thought made me uncomfortable, like I was betraying some principle by even considering it. Who cares what they want? Aisha leaned forward. This wouldn't be about them. It would be about you deciding to make changes on your terms for your reasons. And honestly, nothing would irritate your mother more than you succeeding at something while completely ignoring her input. That made me smile despite myself. You might have a point there. Just think about it, Marcus said. Whatever you decide, we've got your back. If you want to tell them to go fly a kite, we'll help you draft the message. If you want to make some changes, we'll support that too. After leaving my friends, I walked through downtown Minneapolis, their words echoing in my mind. The idea of making changes for myself, not to please my family, was appealing. I'd spent so long resisting anything that seemed like capitulation to their standards that I'd never considered what I might want for my own health and well-being, separate from their expectations. The following Monday, I called a local gym that Aisha had recommended. They paired me with David, a personal trainer who specialized in strength training for beginners. Our first meeting was refreshingly different from what I'd expected. "What are your goals?" David asked after introducing himself. I hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I guess to lose weight." "That's a common starting point," he said with a smile. "But let's dig a little deeper. Why do you want to lose weight? How do you want to feel in your body?" No one had ever asked me that before. My family's focus had always been on how I looked, never how I felt. The question made me pause and truly consider what I wanted. "I want to feel strong," I found myself saying. "I want more energy. I want to be able to carry my camera equipment all day without my back aching. I want to climb stairs without getting winded." I paused, then added more quietly, "I want to look in the mirror and feel proud of what I see, not because I fit some ideal, but because I know I'm taking care of myself." David nodded. "Those are excellent goals, much more motivating than just a number on a scale. Let's focus on building your strength and endurance, and the rest will follow." We developed a plan that included 3 training sessions per week, plus additional cardio days on my own. David also suggested I consult with a nutritionist, not for a restrictive diet, but to learn about balanced meal planning that would support my new activity level. The first weeks were hard. My muscles protested the unfamiliar exertion, and I had to fight years of negative associations with exercise. Memories of being the last one picked for teams in school, of my mother enrolling me in dance classes, where I felt painfully out of place among the willowy girls in leotards. But gradually, something shifted. I began to appreciate what my body could do, rather than focusing on how it looked. I celebrated being able to lift heavier weights, to hold plank position longer, to complete my cardio sessions without stopping to catch my breath. The nutritionist Rachel took a similarly holistic approach. Instead of putting me on a strict diet, she taught me about balanced meals and mindful eating. I discovered the pleasure of cooking for myself, experimenting with new ingredients and flavors. Nourishing your body isn't about restriction, she told me. It's about abundance, giving your body what it needs to thrive. 2 months into my new routine, I began to notice changes. My clothes fit differently. I slept better and woke with more energy. My skin had a healthy glow that no amount of expensive products had ever achieved. But the most significant change was in how I felt about myself. For the first time, I was taking action not to please others or to escape criticism, but because I valued myself enough to invest in my well-being. At work, Jordan noticed the difference in my confidence. "Whatever you're doing, it's working," she said, after I successfully presented a campaign to a particularly demanding client. "You owned that room today." I started sharing glimpses of my journey on Instagram. Not dramatic before and after photos, but moments of my daily routine. A sunrise seen on my morning run, a colorful meal. I'd prepared a selfie capturing my smile after completing a challenging workout. To my surprise, these posts resonated with people. Friends and even some strangers commented with their own stories of reclaiming their relationship with their bodies. I hadn't told my family about my lifestyle changes. Our Sunday dinners had been put on hold due to Kate's busy wedding planning schedule, for which I was secretly grateful. I wanted to make these changes without their commentary or approval. For once, this was about me, not about meeting their expectations. I didn't realize how much I had changed until I visited my parents' house for Easter, about 2 months after that fateful phone call. I'd been so focused on how I felt that I hadn't paid much attention to how I looked. But the moment I walked through the door, my family's reactions made the changes impossible to ignore. My mother froze in the foyer, the polite greeting dying on her lips as she took in my appearance. I wasn't dramatically different. This wasn't a movie makeover scene, but the changes were noticeable enough to visibly startle her. Samantha, she finally managed, her voice slightly higher than usual. You look different. My father emerged from his study, his eyebrows rising as he assessed me. Well, I see you took our conversation seriously. Good for you, Samantha. Their reactions were exactly what I'd expected. Relief that I was finally conforming to their standards, with no curiosity about my motivations or well-being. But what surprised me was Kate's response when she arrived with Jonathan shortly after. My sister did a double take, her carefully composed expression slipping for just an instant to reveal something that looked remarkably like alarm before she recovered with a bright artificial smile. Samwell, you've lost weight. Her voice was too loud, her enthusiasm too pronounced. The bridesmaid dresses are going to look amazing on you. Throughout dinner, I noticed my sister watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Each time Jonathan directed a question to me or commented positively on something I said, Kate would subtly redirect the conversation. It was Grace who finally addressed the elephant in the room with her usual lack of tact. So, how much have you lost? You must have been doing something extreme to change this much in just a couple months. Before I could answer, my mother jumped in. Grace, it's not polite to discuss such things at the dinner table. Then, unable to contain her own curiosity, she added, Though I do hope you're doing this in a healthy way, Samantha. Crash diets can wreak havoc on your complexion. Actually, I said, taking a sip of water, I've been working with a personal trainer and a nutritionist. It's been more about building strength and eating well than just losing weight. A nutritionist. My mother's tone suggested I'd said I was consulting a psychic. That seems excessive. Diana Martin's daughter just did that meal delivery service. Dropped 3 sizes in no time. I'm not interested in quick fixes, I replied evenly. This is about making sustainable changes. Well, whatever you're doing, it's clearly working, Jonathan said warmly. You look happy and healthy. Kate's fork clattered against her plate. Mom, we need to schedule that final tasting with the caterer. I'm thinking we should reconsider the appetizer selection. The abrupt change of subject wasn't subtle, but the conversation moved on. The rest of the evening continued in a similar vein. My appearance acknowledged, but quickly diverted from, as if my family wasn't quite comfortable with this new version of me. The real tension emerged 2 weeks later at the bridesmaid dress fitting. The bridal salon was exactly what you'd expect from a place chosen by my mother and sister. All plush white seating and champagne served in crystal flutes, with an army of attendants ready to cater to every whim. Kate had selected identical dresses for all 4 bridesmaids, her 2 college friends Grace and me. As predicted, they were sage green column dresses, elegant, but definitely designed with slim figures in mind. What my mother hadn't mentioned was that they were also backless, with a plunging neckline, the kind of dress I would have been mortified to wear before. When I emerged from the dressing room, the attendant actually gasped. This fits you perfectly. We'll only need minor hemming. I turned to look in the 3-way mirror and barely recognized myself. The dress skimmed my curves, the color complementing my skin tone. For the first time in my life, I stood in front of a mirror in a formal dress and felt genuinely beautiful. You look stunning, Samantha, said one of Kate's friends. Melissa or Melanie, I couldn't remember which. I glanced at Kate, expecting at least a perfunctory compliment. Instead, her face had gone tight, her knuckles white around her champagne flute. It's not quite right, she said, approaching me with a critical eye. The neckline is too revealing on you, and I think we need to reconsider the design. The column silhouette isn't working with the overall aesthetic I'm going for. The attendant looked confused. But Miss, the dress fits her beautifully. Much better than we expected based on the measurements you provided. I realized with a jolt that Kate had given them my old measurements. She had expected, perhaps even wanted, the dress not to fit me properly. I've been reconsidering the whole look, Kate continued, as if the attendant hadn't spoken. I'm thinking we should go with something fuller in the skirt, maybe with cap sleeves. Something more appropriate for a lakeside wedding. Kate, my mother interjected, her voice sharp. We've already put deposits down on these dresses. The design was specifically chosen to complement your gown. It's my wedding, Mom, Kate snapped. If I want to change the bridesmaid dresses, I can. The salon fell uncomfortably silent. The attendants discreetly withdrew, leaving our family in an awkward tableau before the mirrors. "What's really going on, Kate?" I asked quietly. "Nothing's going on," she replied, making air quotes. "I just want my wedding to be perfect." Is that so hard to understand? No, but it's hard to understand why the dress that was perfect 2 months ago suddenly isn't working now that it actually fits me. Kate flushed. "Not everything is about you, Samantha. This is my day, remember? Our mother stepped between us, ever the peacemaker when family discord threatened to become public. Girls, please, let's discuss this at home. Kate, the dresses are lovely and everyone looks beautiful. Samantha has made an effort to fit the aesthetic you wanted just as we asked." The way she phrased it, "fit the aesthetic," struck me like a slap. It was never about my health or well-being. It was always about appearances, about not embarrassing them in front of their social circle. Kate must have realized she was showing her hand too, obviously. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. "You're right, Mom. The dresses are perfect as they are. I'm just stressed with all the planning." On the surface, the crisis was averted. I changed back into my clothes, and we all parted with stiff smiles and promises to talk soon about the upcoming bridal shower. But something fundamental had shifted. I had glimpsed the truth behind my family's request for me to lose weight. It wasn't that they wanted me to change for my benefit or even for the wedding photos. It was that they were comfortable with me only in a very specific role, the imperfect one, the one who made everyone else look better by comparison. My father called later that evening, his tone conciliatory. "Kate's under a lot of pressure with this wedding. Jonathan's family has certain expectations you understand. Try not to take it personally." "Would you be saying that if she'd treated Grace that way?" I asked. His hesitation was answer enough. "That's different. Grace isn't as sensitive about these things as you are." "You mean Grace has never had to deal with this family's obsession with her weight?" "Samantha, that's not fair. We've only ever wanted what's best for you." "Have you, Dad? Or have you wanted what makes you comfortable?" He sighed, the sound heavy with impatience. "I'm not having this conversation. Just try to be supportive of your sister. This wedding is important for the whole family." After he hung up, I received a text from my mother. "Maybe ease up on the weight loss for now, dear. You know how Kate gets when she feels upstaged. Just thinking of family harmony." Then came a message from Grace. "What was that about at the fitting? You know Kate's been dreaming about this wedding forever. Did you have to make such a scene about the dress?" I hadn't made any scene. I'd simply stood there while Kate reacted to my appearance. But in my family's narrative, I was somehow the problem, even when I did exactly what they had asked of me. For the first time, I saw with complete clarity what I was dealing with. My family didn't want me to succeed. They wanted me to try and fail or succeed just enough to avoid embarrassing them, but never enough to shine. It was a devastating realization, but also strangely a freeing one. Because once I understood the game, I could choose whether or not to play it. The weeks leading up to Kate's wedding flew by in a whirlwind of activity. At work, I was handed a major project, redesigning the brand identity for a prominent local restaurant chain that was expanding nationally. Jordan had specifically requested me for the project, a vote of confidence that boosted my growing sense of professional accomplishment. At the same time, I continued my fitness routine, now driven not by my family's expectations, but by how strong and energized it made me feel. David, my trainer, commented on my changing attitude during our sessions. "When you started, you were doing this for someone else," he observed as I completed a set of deadlifts. "Now you're doing it for yourself. It shows in everything from your form to your commitment." He was right. What had begun as a response to my family's ultimatum had evolved into something deeply personal, a commitment to myself, a way of reclaiming my body and my confidence from years of criticism. Meanwhile, the wedding preparations intensified. Though the bridesmaid dresses remained unchanged, likely due to budget constraints rather than any change of heart on Kate's part, my sister found other ways to express her discomfort with my transformation. Bridal shower photos were carefully staged to place me at the edges of group shots. The bachelorette weekend in Chicago featured activities I wasn't included in, with the excuse that I was focusing on my health and wouldn't want to participate in wine tastings or indulgent dinners. The week of the wedding arrived, and the entire family relocated to the Lake Geneva Resort, an exclusive property on the shores of the lake with stunning gardens and a grand ballroom for the reception. My room was in a separate building from the rest of the family, a mix-up with the reservations, according to my mother. Though I suspected it was intentional, the resort was undeniably beautiful with manicured grounds sloping down to the lakefront and elegant nautical-themed decor throughout. Under different circumstances, I might have enjoyed the luxurious setting and the chance to relax. Instead, each family gathering felt like navigating a minefield. Extended family members and friends who hadn't seen me in months reacted with surprise and compliments about my appearance, which only seemed to increase Kate's tension. At the welcome dinner 2 nights before the wedding, I overheard my aunt telling my mother, "Samantha looks incredible. I almost didn't recognize her." My mother's reply was telling, "Yes, well, we're all very proud of her for finally taking our advice seriously. Though between us, I do worry she's becoming a bit obsessed with it all." The narrative was being rewritten in real time. My independent decision to improve my health was being cast as both the result of their pressure taking their advice and simultaneously as something potentially concerning becoming obsessed. I couldn't win either way. The rehearsal dinner the following evening was a lavish affair at an upscale restaurant overlooking the lake. I wore a blue dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion, one that fit my new body perfectly, and made me feel confident. As I entered the private dining room, conversations paused briefly, and I caught several appreciative glances from guests, including some of Jonathan's groomsmen. Kate noticed too. She appeared at my side almost immediately, a brittle smile fixed on her face. "That dress is awfully bright, Sam. I thought the color scheme for the rehearsal dinner was neutrals." "You never mentioned a color scheme," I replied calmly. "And it's blue, hardly neon." "Whatever, just try not to draw so much attention to yourself, okay? This weekend is about me and Jonathan." Before I could respond, she was gone, sweeping away to greet more guests. I stood there for a moment, taken aback by her naked hostility, before making my way to the bar. As I waited for my drink, one of Jonathan's cousins introduced himself and struck up a friendly conversation about the area, mentioning some photography spots I might enjoy. It was a normal, pleasant interaction, until I spotted Kate watching us, her expression thunderous. Throughout the dinner, I tried to keep a low profile, but it seemed that every interaction was being monitored and judged. When Jonathan's father complimented my recent work during his toast, apparently Jonathan had shown him the website I'd designed for a charity he supported. Kate's knuckles went white around her wineglass. After dinner, as guests mingled on the restaurant's terrace, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back, I took a wrong turn and found myself in a small alcove off the main hallway. Before I could redirect myself, I heard familiar voices around the corner and froze. "I don't know what game she's playing, Mom, but it's obvious she's trying to upstage me." Kate's voice was tight with anger. "I know, sweetheart. I've never understood why Samantha has to make everything about herself." My mother's soothing tone was one I recognized from countless childhood conflicts where Kate was always in the right. "Did you see how she was flirting with Jonathan's cousin? And that dress? It's like she's deliberately trying to draw attention away from me." At my own rehearsal dinner, "Honestly," came Grace's voice, "I think she's just enjoying all the attention. She's never had people look at her like that before." "Well, it's selfish," Kate declared. She knew exactly what she was doing when she decided to show up looking like this right before my wedding. She couldn't stand the thought of me being the center of attention for once. "Maybe we should talk to Jonathan's mother about the photography plan," my mother suggested. "We could make sure Samantha isn't in too many of the main family photos." "Good idea," Kate agreed. "And I've already told the wedding planner to seat her at the far table during the reception, away from the head table. I don't need her distracting everyone during the toasts." I backed away silently, my heart pounding in my chest. Their words shouldn't have surprised me. They were consistent with how my family had always treated me. But hearing them laid out so baldly still hurt more than I expected. I had changed my body just as they demanded, but now that change itself was being held against me. I retreated to my room, declining invitations to continue the evening at the resort's bar. As I sat on my balcony looking out at the moonlight reflecting off the lake, I felt a profound sense of clarity wash over me. No matter what I did, gain weight, lose weight, succeed, fail, I would never be fully accepted by my family. The problem wasn't my appearance. It was that I existed outside of the narrow role they had assigned me. Just as this realization was settling in, my phone buzzed with an email from Jordan. The client loved our initial concepts for the restaurant rebrand and wanted to fast-track the project with me as the lead designer. It would mean a significant career advancement and a substantial bonus if we met their accelerated timeline. In that moment, the contrast between my personal and professional lives couldn't have been starker. At work, my growth and success were celebrated. With my family, they were perceived as threats. And for the first time, I knew with absolute certainty which perspective I valued more. The morning of Kate's wedding dawned clear and perfect, the kind of day wedding photographers dream about. Soft light, gentle breeze, and not a cloud in the sky. I reported dutifully to the bridal suite at the appointed time, ready for the hours of hair makeup and photos ahead. The suite was chaos when I arrived. Kate in the center like a queen bee surrounded by attendants, our mother fluttering nervously around the edges, and Grace documenting every moment for social media. I found a quiet corner and waited to be told what to do. "Samantha, you're finally here," my mother said, as though I was late rather than exactly on time. "Your dress is hanging in the second bedroom. The makeup artist will get to you. Eventually. We're running behind with Kate." I nodded and went to change. The dress still fit perfectly, perhaps even better than at the fitting. When I emerged, one of the makeup artists, not the head one reserved for Kate and my mother, but her assistant, gestured me to a chair. "You have great bone structure," she commented as she worked. "I'm thinking a subtle smoky eye would look amazing with this dress and your coloring." "Actually," Kate's voice cut in from across the room, "I want all the bridesmaids to have the same look. Very natural, barely there makeup, nothing dramatic." The makeup artist glanced at Grace, already fully made up with a look that was anything but barely there, then back at me with a raised eyebrow. "Just follow the bride's wishes," I said quietly. I understood the game now. When the photographer arrived, the manipulation continued. Kate arranged the getting ready photos to keep me in the background or out of frame entirely. During the formal pre-ceremony portraits, she positioned me at the end of every group shot, easily cropped out if desired. "Samantha, maybe you could stand behind Grace in this one," my mother suggested during one setup. "You're a bit taller, and it would balance the composition." I complied silently, meeting the photographer's eyes briefly. Her sympathetic glance told me she understood exactly what was happening. Despite it all, I maintained my composure. This wasn't about me, and I refused to give them the satisfaction of creating a scene they could later recount as evidence of my selfishness. Instead, I played my part with quiet dignity, smiling when appropriate, assisting Kate with her dress, and keeping my interactions pleasant but minimal. The ceremony itself was beautiful, I had to admit. The lakeside setting was stunning, with white chairs set up on the manicured lawn, leading to a flower-covered arch where Jonathan waited. Kate was radiant in her designer gown, and the look of genuine love on Jonathan's face as she walked down the aisle made me hope that despite everything, my sister might find happiness in this marriage. It was during the reception that everything finally came to a head. As promised, I had been seated at a table far from the main wedding party, with distant relatives and colleagues of Jonathan's parents. I made conversation politely, finding common ground with Jonathan's aunt, who was also a photography enthusiast. The toasts were predictably effusive, my father praising Kate as the daughter every father dreams of, my mother tearfully recounting Kate's accomplishments, Grace sharing childhood memories that notably excluded me despite the fact that I was present for most of them. I applauded along with everyone else, maintaining the facade of the happy family. It was only during the open dancing, after the formal first dances had concluded, that the dam finally broke. I was enjoying myself on the dance floor with a mixed group, including some of Jonathan's friends and cousins, when Kate appeared at my elbow. "Could I speak with you outside?" Her smile was fixed, her eyes hard. I followed her to the terrace, away from the music and the crowd. The evening air was cool off the lake stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "Is everything okay, Kate?" I asked, though I knew very well it wasn't. "No, everything is not okay." She turned to face me, dropping all pretense. "What exactly do you think you're doing in there?" "Dancing at my sister's wedding reception." "Don't play dumb. You've been drawing attention to yourself all day. The way you're dancing, laughing so loudly, flirting with Jonathan's friends." I stared at her, genuinely bewildered. I'm participating in your wedding like any other guest or bridesmaid. How is that drawing attention? You know exactly what you're doing, she hissed. You couldn't stand that this day was about me, could you? You had to make sure everyone noticed how different you look now. The accusation was so unfair, so divorced from reality, that it momentarily left me speechless. I had spent the entire day deliberately staying in the background, accommodating her every request, no matter how unreasonable. Kate, I finally said, keeping my voice even. I did exactly what you and Mom asked me to do months ago. I lost weight so I would fit the aesthetic of your wedding. I've kept a low profile all day. I've done everything possible not to draw attention away from you. Exactly. She jabbed a finger toward me. You lost weight right before my wedding because you knew it would make people notice you. You could have done this years ago if you really wanted to be healthy. But no, you timed it perfectly to upstage me. The irony was so absurd I almost laughed. So when I was heavier, I was an embarrassment you needed to fix. And now that I've changed, I'm deliberately trying to upstage you. There's no winning this game, is there? This isn't a game, Samantha. This is the most important day of my life, and you're ruining it. By existing, I asked quietly, because that seems to be my only crime here. By making everything about you as usual. Her voice rose, drawing glances from a few guests smoking nearby. Something in me finally snapped, not in anger, but in a sudden, complete release of the need to please this person who would never be pleased with me. Kate, I said, my voice steady and clear, I am genuinely happy for you today. You look beautiful. Jonathan seems like a wonderful person, and I hope your marriage brings you joy. But I'm done apologizing for taking up space in this family. I changed my body because it was the right choice for me not to satisfy or upset you. And I refuse to shrink myself, physically or emotionally, ever again to make you comfortable. She stared at me speechless for perhaps the first time in our relationship. Enjoy your wedding, Kate. I truly mean that. I turned and walked back inside, not to the dance floor, but to collect my purse from my table. I had said what needed to be said, and now it was time to leave. Not in anger or drama, but with the quiet dignity of someone who finally understood her own worth. As I made my quiet exit through a side door, I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find Jonathan, of all people, following me. Samantha, wait, he called. Are you leaving? I nodded. It's better this way. Kate's upset with me, and I don't want to cause any more tension on your special day. He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. I overheard some of what happened out there. I'm really sorry. It's not your fault, I assured him. Still, I want you to know that I've always admired how genuine you are. In a family that's so concerned with appearances, you've always seemed real. His words surprised me. I'd always assumed he saw me through the same lens my family did. Thank you, Jonathan. That means a lot. Take good care of my sister, okay? She's complicated, but I do want her to be happy. He nodded, looking relieved that I wasn't making a scene. Will you be okay? I will, I said, and for the first time in a long time when saying those words to a family member, I actually meant it. I returned to my hotel room, a complex mixture of emotions washing over me. There was sadness, certainly, at the broken relationships laid bare today. But underneath that was something stronger, a sense of liberation. I had finally stopped waiting for approval that would never come and started valuing myself instead. I called Aisha and Marcus on speaker, needing to connect with people who saw me clearly. I think I just burned every bridge with my family, I told them after recounting what had happened. Sounds to me like they set those bridges on fire long ago, Aisha replied. You just finally noticed they were already ash. What are you going to do now? Marcus asked. I looked out at the night sky over the lake stars reflecting on the dark water. I'm going to write them a letter, I think. Not for them, really, but for me. To say all the things I've never said. And then I'm going to go home and live my life without constantly seeking their approval. That sounds like a plan, Marcus said warmly. Need company for the drive back tomorrow. I'll be okay. I assured them. For real this time. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began to write. The letter wasn't angry or accusatory. Instead, it was honest in a way I'd never allowed myself to be with my family before. I wrote about the pain of growing up never feeling good enough, about the damage done by their constant criticism, about my hope that someday they might see me, really see me for who I am, rather than who they wanted me to be. And finally, about my decision to step back from our relationship until they could respect my boundaries and value me as I am. I printed the letter in the hotel business center early the next morning. Before most of the wedding guests had even woken up, I slipped it under my parents' door and checked out of the resort, pointing my car back toward Minneapolis and the life I had built for myself. The 3 months following Kate's wedding were transformative in ways I never could have anticipated. Returning to Minneapolis after that watershed moment, I felt like I was seeing my life through new eyes. The apartment I had created, the career I was building, the friendships I had nurtured. They were no longer consolation prizes for failing to win my family's approval. They were the authentic life I had chosen for myself. At work, the restaurant rebrand project became my primary focus. Jordan gave me unprecedented creative control, and I threw myself into the challenge with newfound confidence. The client loved my vision of refreshing their classic brand while honoring its history. And when the first redesigned location opened to rave reviews, Jordan called me into her office. "I'm promoting you to creative director," she announced without preamble. "You've more than earned it with this project, and frankly, you've been operating at that level for months now." The promotion came with a substantial raise and new responsibilities that both excited and challenged me. For the first time, I would have junior designers reporting to me, a thought that would have terrified me a year earlier, but now felt right. Outside of work, I continued my fitness routine, no longer driven by an external deadline, but simply because it had become a part of my life that I enjoyed. David, my trainer, suggested I consider training for a half marathon, and to my own surprise, I agreed. "Not because you need to lose more weight," he clarified quickly, "but because I think you'd enjoy the challenge and the structure of training for a specific event." He was right. The discipline of following a training plan suited me, and I discovered an unexpected joy in the long weekend runs, watching the Minneapolis skyline change with the seasons as I circled the lakes and river paths. I also joined a support group for adults dealing with difficult family relationships, meeting weekly in a community center downtown. Hearing other stories helped me understand that my experience, while painful, wasn't unique. Many people struggled with families who couldn't accept them as they were. Some had found ways to establish healthier boundaries while maintaining relationships. Others had made the difficult decision to cut ties completely. There were no easy answers, but there was comfort in the shared understanding. About 6 weeks after the wedding, I received a text from Kate. "Back from honeymoon, can we talk?" I waited a full day before responding, considering whether I was ready for any contact. Finally, I replied, "I'm open to talking, but I need to know that you've read my letter and are willing to acknowledge the issues I raised." Her response was telling. "I read it. I don't agree with everything, but I miss having you in my life. Coffee next week." Not an apology, not an admission of wrongdoing, but at least an expression of desire for connection. I agreed to meet, setting a clear time limit. "I can do Tuesday at 3 for an hour." Establishing a boundary from the start. Our meeting was stilted at first, both of us careful with our words. Kate talked about her honeymoon in the Maldives, showing me pictures of overwater bungalows and pristine beaches. I shared news of my promotion, which she acknowledged with what seemed like genuine congratulations. Eventually, we circled back to the elephant in the room. I may have overreacted at the wedding. Kate offered the closest thing to an apology I expected to get. "It wasn't just the wedding, Kate. It's been our entire relationship." She sighed, stirring her latte. "We were raised in a competitive environment. Mom and Dad always pitted us against each other, even if they didn't realize they were doing it." It was the first time she had ever acknowledged this truth, and it felt like a tiny crack in the wall between us. "They did," I agreed. "But we're adults now. We get to choose whether to continue that pattern." We parted that day with no dramatic reconciliation, but perhaps a slightly better understanding. Rome wasn't built in a day, and family relationships couldn't be rebuilt in a single coffee meeting. Around the same time, I started a blog chronicling my journey, not just the physical transformation, but the emotional one as well. I wrote about learning to value myself independently of external validation, about setting boundaries with toxic relationships, about the freedom that comes from letting go of others' expectations. To my surprise, the blog gained a following with readers reaching out to share their own similar experiences. 2 months after the wedding, I arranged to meet my parents for dinner at a neutral location, a new restaurant downtown, neither their territory nor mine. I arrived early and chose a table in the corner, giving myself a clear view of the entrance and an easy exit if needed. When they walked in, I was struck by how small they suddenly seemed. My father, always an imposing figure in my childhood, looked older and more uncertain. My mother, still immaculately groomed, had a tightness around her eyes I hadn't noticed before. The initial conversation was awkward, weather traffic safe topics that wouldn't lead to conflict. Then my father cleared his throat. "Your letter," he began, then paused, seeming to search for words. "It was difficult to read." "It was difficult to write," I replied evenly. "Some of what you said, about how we made you feel growing up, that wasn't our intention, Samantha." My mother reached across the table as if to take my hand, then seemed to think better of it. "We only wanted what was best for you. I believe you thought you did," I said carefully. "But good intentions don't erase the impact of your actions." My father frowned. "We pushed all our children to excel." "You pushed us differently," I countered. Kate and Grace were pushed to leverage their strengths. I was consistently told that who I was wasn't good enough. A silence fell over the table, heavy with decades of unspoken truths. "I've been thinking about why I reacted so strongly to your transformation." My mother finally admitted, surprising me with her candor. "And I realize now that part of it was jealousy." "Jealousy? I hadn't expected this." She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "You found a confidence that has nothing to do with external validation. I've spent my entire life seeking approval from others. My parents, my social circle, even my children. Seeing you break free of that, it forced me to confront my own insecurities." It was perhaps the most honest thing my mother had ever said to me. In that moment, I saw her not as the critical, appearance-obsessed figure of my childhood, but as a woman shaped by her own upbringing and societal pressures. "We may have been wrong in how we handled things," my father added, the admission clearly costing him. "But we've always loved you, Samantha." "I know," I said, and I did. Their love had always been conditional, but it was real in its way. But love should build you up, not tear you down. I needed to be accepted for who I was, not constantly reminded of who I wasn't. By the end of dinner, we had reached no grand resolution. The wounds of a lifetime couldn't be healed in a single conversation. But we had started a different kind of dialogue, one based on honesty rather than appearances, on reality rather than expectations. "I'd like to try building a new kind of relationship," I told them as we prepared to leave, "one with clear boundaries and mutual respect. I can't go back to how things were." They agreed, though I could see the uncertainty in their eyes. This new terrain was unfamiliar to all of us. In the weeks that followed, I maintained limited contact with my family, brief phone calls, occasional texts. It wasn't perfect, but it was healthier than what we'd had before. Kate and I settled into a cautious, sisterly relationship, more distant than close, but no longer actively antagonistic. Grace surprisingly reached out to me privately, confessing that she had often felt trapped in her role as the perfect youngest child, and admired my courage in breaking away from family expectations. As fall arrived in Minneapolis, bringing crimson and gold to the trees along the riverfront, my life continued to evolve. I completed my first half marathon, crossing the finish line with Aisha and Marcus cheering me on. My blog gained enough traction that a publisher reached out about developing it into a book. And at a photography exhibit I attended for work, I met Ryan, a photojournalist whose authentic approach to capturing human stories resonated with my own journey toward authenticity. The greatest transformation wasn't the weight I lost, but the weight of expectations I finally set down. Now I move forward lighter in every way that matters, writing my own story, instead of trying to fit into someone else's. If my experience has taught me anything, It's that true beauty comes not from fitting an external standard, but from the confidence of living authentically.